Hi guys, it's Richardlizhu and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be comparing two of the most popular belts from Hank's Belts. The Hank's Everyday Belt has over 2,000 reviews on Amazon, and their Gunner Belt has over 100 reviews on Amazon. On their own website, they have over 3,800 reviews on their Gunner Belt, which according to their website is the belt that started it all, and the Everyday Belt has over 800 reviews. Both of these are extremely popular belts, and they're pretty similar. And today we're going to be comparing and contrasting the similarities and differences between them. Let's get started. From looking at the online description of these two belts, I saw that there were going to be three key differences between these two belts. First among them was their hardware. On the Everyday Belt, it's a shiny black finish, plain belt buckle, whereas on the Gunner Belt, it is a shiny silver stainless steel finish on their buckle. It additionally has a roller that is not present on the Everyday Belt. Another difference that I thought there was going to be between them was online it lists the Everyday Belt as a 13-ounce leather and the Gunner as a 14-ounce leather. For leather products, the higher the ounce number for the leather, the thicker the leather is going to be. 1 ounce approximately corresponds to 1/16 of an inch in the thickness of the leather. So I expected the Gunner to be just slightly thicker than the Everyday, which makes sense, right? Because the Gunner is meant as a utility belt to hold a holster for your gun, whereas the Everyday is meant to be worn, every day, right? So, however, once I got the belts, I actually realized that the Everyday belt was slightly thicker than the Gunner. It's extremely hard to tell online. It's extremely hard to tell through video, but in real life, it's also kind of hard to tell, but you need to take my word for it that the Everyday actually seems just slightly thicker than the Gunner. So I know this also isn't a one-off issue because I actually got another Gunner belt because I missized my belt originally. And this Gunner belt is also the same thickness as the other Gunner belt, which is slightly thinner than that of the Everyday. So that's something to note. If you're looking for a thinner belt, you actually want to go for the Gunner. It's slightly thinner. Very hard to notice. The third thing described as a difference between these two belts is the number of holes. So the Everyday belt here has 6 holes and the Gunner has 8 holes. Something that I noticed after getting these two belts is that the holes are not the same spaced apart. So within each belt, it's the same spacing. So on the Everyday here, each hole is exactly 1 inch apart from the other hole. That's what they advertise on their website. But for the Gunner belt, actually, they advertise as 1 inch spacing between their holes. However, if you look at the comparison between the Everyday and the Gunner, you can clearly see that there's a difference in the sizing. So the 6th hole on the Everyday actually only goes to the 5.5, like in between the 5th and 6th holes in the Gunner. This is very clear to tell when you put them right over each other, and then you can see light between the first 2 holes, but then you can't see anything. So aside from just have the number of holes, the spacing is different. On the Everyday, it's exactly 1 inch, and on the Gunner, it's slightly more than 1 inch. Next, let's go back to the hardware. So I knew that the color and finishing was going to be different, but what I wasn't expecting was on the Gunner, you see it's like a kind of flat riveted kind of finish, like it's like a flat nail that you would nail in, and on the outside. And on the inside, there's space for a hex screw, or like a 6-pointed star screw, and also a flathead, so that you can remove these Chicago screws if you want to buy replacements that you can find on their website. And for the Everyday, however, on both sides, there's actually a kind of slot for a flathead screwdriver. I don't know if you can see that, but so that's kind of difference that I wasn't really expecting. I don't really prefer one over the other, but that's just a difference that I feel like I should mention in this thorough review of these two products. Something that also very hard to distinguish, but let's try to see here. So on the Gunner belt, if you look at it from like a cross section, the edge finishing comes up all the way and maybe slightly spills over the edge finishing, the edge is burnished first and then dyed, right? So the edge finishing, it gets the complete edge and it's very nice, right? But on the everyday, the edge finishing, the black dye comes up ever so slightly, like less than a millimeter, over onto the front side of the belt. So what this does in practice is it kind of narrows the appearance of the belt, and that the brown part of it is actually narrower than on the gunner. So the everyday therefore looks slightly slimmer than the gunner, and maybe this is part of what makes it more everyday. It's really hard to notice even in person, but like looking at it, you probably can't tell online, but in person, it's subtle but there. And then for their sizing guide, I followed their sizing guide exactly for the everyday belt, and it was exactly as they said. My belt that I normally wear is 34 inches from the buckle to the hole that I normally use, and they said that it would be 34 inches from the buckle to the third hole, which is exactly the case, right? And then so I followed the same guide. I thought since I was a 34 on the everyday, I'd be a 34 on the gunner. However, that was not the case. As you can see, their online guide says that the gunner would be 34 inches from the buckle to the fourth hole, right? The buckle to the fourth hole. However, that was simply not the case. Because the holes are actually wider apart placed on the gunner than the everyday, the third hole on the gunner is actually like halfway between the third and fourth holes on the everyday. So actually, I need to size one up on the gunner in order to get the correct sizing. So take that into account if you're buying these belts. And then another question that I thought I might answer is do you buy from them or do you buy it from Amazon, right? And I would say if you're buying for the first time and don't know what size you're going to end up with or what style you like, and you want to buy 2 or 3 different belts and you're probably going to return one of them, then I would say go with Amazon, because it's a lot simpler to return on Amazon. So here are the 2 packages that I got for both of these belts. So this is the one that I got directly from Hank's Belts, and as you can see, it's just a standard package. I ripped it open. There's nothing to it. And then here's the package that I got from Amazon. It tears open, perforated edge, and then there's adhesive that I can just remove and then put the belt back in and close it up and send it back to Amazon if the fit's not right. So Amazon has kind of thought of all this in their kind of packaging. I can just go to a UPS store and have them scan the QR code, and they'll automatically print out my return label and put it on my package. Whereas for the one that I bought directly from Hank's Belts, I'm going to have to print out the shipping label myself and find a new bag, because this one, or I'll have to seal this bag again. So if you plan on returning any of them, I'll definitely say probably buy from Amazon. There's no difference in the shipping times. So I have Amazon Prime, and it was 2-day shipping both with Prime and both directly from Hank's Belts. So I was very surprised with the speed of the delivery directly from Hank's Belts. And actually, if you buy from Hank's Belts, there are almost always promo codes that you can use for 10% off. I'll display some of them out on the screen right now. But this is probably the cut that Amazon would have taken anyway. So Hank's Belts is passing those savings directly onto you as a consumer, and that's something that I really appreciate. All in all, I would say you definitely can't go wrong with either of these belts. So going into it, I thought I wanted a thicker belt because I kind of like the idea of having a thick belt, right? It's rugged, it'll last for a long time. But when I got it in practice, actually, the everyday actually was a bit too thick, in my opinion. When it overlaps in the front, it was kind of bulbous and looked kind of inappropriate in some settings. I'm not wearing holsters on my belts. I'm just a software engineer, so the everyday kind of ended up being a little bit too thick in my opinion. So actually, the fact that the gunner was thinner actually ended up being a plus. So I'm going to end up keeping the size 36 gunner belt, and I'll return the 34 everyday and the 34 gunner. I was initially attracted to the black hardware on the everyday, but I actually talked to some of my friends and they said the silver hardware on the gunner actually looks better. And that probably makes sense because mostly you see brown paired with silver hardware. So, most people probably know what they're doing. And so this is probably, since this is more iconic and classic, this is probably what I'll keep. But when I bought the gunner, I preferred the gunner initially because of the fact that it had 8 holes instead of 6. You can always punch more holes after the fact, but I was afraid of not making it smooth or even, and I would always prefer it done from the factory. So that's why I preferred the gunner over the everyday, because the hardware, I initially wanted black hardware with a roller, so that would be 20 extra bucks from the Hanks Belt website, and you can get black Chicago screws to replace the silver ones, and then you can get a black roller buckle. That's what I was gonna do, but since my friends like the silver better, so I'm just gonna keep the silver and just keep it stock as is. And if in the future I feel the need to switch out the hardware, I can do so for the low price of 20 bucks. I don't predict that I'll ever have to buy another belt in the near future. Thanks again for watching this product comparison video between two of the most popular belts from Hanks Belts. Normally I review more tech-oriented products on this channel, but I was looking to buy a belt for myself, and I did a lot of research and thought I could pass that knowledge on to you guys through this video. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in more product review videos and videos about life as a software engineer in Silicon Valley, please subscribe to this channel. Thanks again for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.